Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds. And if you can't tell by the title, Dating is Embarrassing, of this week's episode, this is kind of a continuation of last week's episode discussing Shantae Joseph's article, Is Having a Boyfriend Embarrassing? Now, like I said in that episode, having a boyfriend in itself is not inherently embarrassing. What is embarrassing is staying with a man who very clearly does not like you and shows that in his actions. You don't want to marry a fucking loser. And now that begs the question not only of like how to find a good man, which I don't even know. I clearly have not found one yet. I'm just kidding. I've dated a lot of great men, but it begs the question of if you have gone through heartbreak, how do I know if I am ready to date again? So of course, dating can feel very embarrassing. It's vulnerable. You're having dinner with strangers. You're telling literal strangers very personal things about yourself over time. But that is just how dating is. And it's, you'll be on these dates and you're sitting across the table from somebody and you feel like you're playing a game of chess and they're actually playing Go Fish. Like it doesn't make sense half the time. And so when it comes to dating, it begs the question, not only why does dating feel this way, but just how do I know if I want to even sign up for that? And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about all about this week. Because the thing about heartbreak, and I've said this before, is that we are never going to be the person we were before the relationship, before the breakup. And it's up to us as people to make sure that is for the better. And when it comes to stepping back into the world of dating, you may step back in before you're ready. It may be too soon. Maybe your heart is still aching. Maybe you're not ready to call somebody else home yet, but maybe you are. Maybe you've found this new version of yourself, found what you need to change, found the ways in which, you maybe didn't show up great in that last relationship. And while you may not be that person you were before your relationship again, the new version of you is still worthy of love. We are all still worthy of love. It is just up to us to work on ourselves to be better for that next person. Love shouldn't feel like losing yourself. It should feel like coming home. And it should feel like, for us women, it should feel like taking your bra off at the end of the day. That feeling of relief and just instant relaxation is what love in your person should feel like. And I think if that's how you feel in your relationship, that is a sign you're with the right person. Let's answer the question. How do I know if I'm ready for love again? I have been single for 4 years now. My last major relationship ended when I was 22. And I have spent the most of my 20s not only finding myself, but also trying to answer this question, do I want a relationship? I've gone through periods of intentionally not dating and dating intentionally. I've even done a 1 year, no boys, celibacy, no nothing, no dating apps streak. And that year taught me a lot about myself. I've done it a couple times since then. I've gone 6 months no dating, 8 months no dating. I have healed so much on my own. And I think I have healed on my own as much as I can. And as I've healed so much on my own, now I'm at a point in dating where I have to get comfortable being uncomfortable again because my anxious attachment triggers do still show up. The difference is how I manage and handle those triggers and how I emotionally regulate myself. Because the truth is, as much as I think it is so important that we all experience a period of singleness, that we truly love our single lives and we work on ourselves, we find ourselves, we figure out what we like and we don't like, too much of that can lead to hyper-independence. And if you guys want me to do a whole episode talking about hyper-independence, I absolutely will. I don't think I've really done a deep dive into hyper-independence just yet. I know that's something I have personally struggled with. But the truth about too much isolation and too much hyper-independence is that we haven't actually healed our triggers. It's that we've just isolated ourselves from the triggers that we think we've healed. I still believe in this idea of how can somebody else love you if you don't love yourself? I do still think that is true. I think if you are dating from a place of lack, if you are dating from an absence of self-love, you're inevitably going to lead yourself into toxic relationships and toxic cycles. And also, especially so, people always say people can only meet us as deeply as they've met themselves. That is the same for you. You can only meet somebody else as deeply as you've met yourself. So that is why I think that phrase does have merit. There is no such thing as fully healed in order to date again. And you have to heal enough to where you can handle rejection, handle confusing, handle mixed signals, understand that dating is not a reflection of your worth. You have to heal to that point to know you are worthy and deserving of love. How do I know if I'm ready to date again? Well, I can't tell you that. Obviously, like I said, no such thing as fully healed, but there are some questions you can ask yourself in order to determine if and when you are ready to date again. First and foremost, can I handle being rejected? Okay, rejection is a part of life. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. Does it suck if the person you like rejects you, tells you they're not ready for a relationship, tells you they are seeing somebody else, whatever it is? Yeah, that sucks. But can you handle that? Because rejection is inevitably a part of dating. Everybody's out here just doing their best. And so you need to get to a place where you understand that someone choosing not to date you doesn't mean anything about you. It honestly probably has nothing to do with you. The next question is, do you know what your triggers are, and can you emotionally regulate yourself? Can you sit in discomfort? Or do you crash out when someone's gone 5 hours without texting you back? I just kind of had this trial happen for myself. I was seeing somebody for about 6 weeks and things were going all very, very well. So I thought we were on the same page. He verbatim said, my intention is not to date you casually. I know you are somebody who I would want to pursue for a romantic relationship. I am at a point where who I spend my time with is going to inform, my long-term decisions and blah, blah, blah. All those things. He switched up on me. Suddenly I'm not in a place to prioritize relationship. I'm not ready for a relationship. I think we have different expectations, blah, 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 blah. And don't get me wrong. Was I struggling with my anxious attachment so hard in this? Yes. And I think that should have been a sign for me that, hey, maybe this person can't meet my needs. But what I am proud of is how I handled those conversations with him. I communicated, hey, this communication style isn't working for me. Can we talk about this? Or, I'm sorry, I don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who thinks it's normal to go 4 to 5 days without speaking. That's not a relationship. That's breadcrumbing. And I wasn't willing to sign up for that. And at the end of the day, he said to me, I'm just not in a place to prioritize you in a relationship. And then he wanted to keep seeing each other and sleeping together. And I could have said, yeah, that's fine. Let's keep just doing what we're doing and seeing where it goes. But at the end of the day, if somebody is sitting there telling you they're not ready for a relationship, they can't prioritize a relationship, they can't give you what they want, give you what you need or want, that is not a challenge. That is not an invitation to just sit and wait around and see if they change their mind. If you're fine with that, and if you just want casual and you're fine just doing what you were doing and it doesn't emotionally affect you, be my guest, keep doing that. But if you are someone that will be like, oh, well, maybe if I just give it a little more time, no, you're self-abandoning and self-sacrificing again, because I don't even think then you actually like that person. You just want to be chosen by them. You think that being chosen by them will prove something about you. And that is a trap that I have fallen into time and time again, especially with guys. And then I look back and I'm like, did I even actually like that man? Probably not. So that's the other thing with your triggers is, can you speak up about them? Is this person providing a safe space for you to communicate, hey, here's what's going on in my brain. What can we do about it? And have those conversations. You need to be able to advocate for yourself, but also hold yourself accountable when it comes to dating. This next one is hard, and it doesn't necessarily say whether or not you're ready for a relationship, but I think it's still a great indicator if you are. And it's, what have you learned from your past relationships? What has it taught you about yourself? What has it taught you about the way you show up? Maybe ask yourself, what is one thing that I was missing from my last relationship that I think contributed to its downfall? What are some ways that I showed up that contributed to the downfall of that relationship? Being able to reflect on a past relationship without wallowing and clearly not being over your ex are two very different things. So you should be able to reflect, you can reflect on that relationship and talk about that relationship without getting overly emotional and overly triggered. That's also a sign that you are ready. This next one is going to be a hard one. And it's, are you truly in a place to prioritize someone the way you would expect them to prioritize you? This is a hard one because I have done this time and time again where I say I want a relationship and then I'm ready for a relationship. And then in actuality, I don't think I am. And I'm having a bit of that right now. Looking at my calendar for the next couple of months, it is really booked and busy. If I met somebody incredibly amazing who checked all my boxes, I would do my absolute best to prioritize them. However, is that what's best for me right now? Maybe not, because I want to be focused. I don't want to be distracted. I don't want to deal with the ups and downs of emotional ties. And that is okay and fair, but you have to ask yourself that is, like, are you truly in a place emotionally that you can prioritize someone's needs and feelings? Because yes, dating is not about self-abandoning and, you know, putting someone's needs above our own, but you do have to be able to match the energy that you are expecting out of a partner. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to go wrong in dating. Being in a relationship is a choice. Both people have to choose to be in that relationship, be willing to prioritize that relationship. And you can't build a relationship with somebody who is not willing to do that. You can't build a relationship that is one-sided. That's only going to lead to contempt down the line. And with prioritizing that relationship begs the question, are you actually in a place where you are willing to have compromise and sacrifice for the sake of your relationship to make it work? Again, this does not mean enable toxic behaviors, be controlling, like any of those toxic things. But a good and healthy relationship is going to require sacrifice and compromise on your part. And you have to ask yourself if you are willing to give up certain freedoms of singleness, like being able to pick up and do whatever you want when you want. Like, you do have somebody else to consider now. And I think there's a fine line between controlling and being considerate in a relationship. And I don't think that is a conversation people are really willing to have of where do we draw the line. The next question, if you're going to start dating again, is ask yourself, what kind of relationship do I even want? Do I want to get married? Do I want somebody just for now to have fun with? Like, you need to be so clear and intentional first with somebody else, like with somebody else, yes, of course, but first and foremost with yourself about what do I want out of this dynamic? And if you can get clear on that, it's going to save you from those toxic situationships that last you 8 months. It's going to save you from crashing out over a guy because he didn't text you back. It's going to save you from crashing out about a guy that you slept with simply because he didn't want to go out with you again. Like, if you can get clear and intentional about what it is you actually want in the relationship, that is going to save you from so much pain. And with the being clear and intentional part, it begs the question too of, you have to realize whether or not you're actually emotionally available, because I think a lot of people want the benefits of an emotionally intelligent and an emotionally available partner without themselves being willing to meet that. You have to be so vulnerable. You can't have a partner that's going to make you feel so safe, seen, and heard without, one, giving that back to them, but also without letting them see all of you. True emotional intelligence and availability requires vulnerability. It demands it. So if you yourself are not emotionally available, you have to be honest with yourself about that. The next question of if you're ready to date again is, have you actually grieved your last relationship? Have you truly felt the pain of that heartbreak? Because you can't drink it away. You can't smoke it away. You can't fuck it away. You can't lift it away with workouts. You can't work it away. You have to experience that heartbreak and that grief fully, because that is the only way you are not only going to just actually move on, but the only way that you're going to be able to grow and reflect on it so you can be better for your next relationship. And this is why I say, like, we're never going to be the same person we were before heartbreak. What matters is the person that we do inevitably become. And it is up to you. It is your responsibility to make sure that is for the best. Because so if you do not heal any of those wounds, if you don't heal those triggers, if you don't heal from whatever that pain was, you are inevitably going to bring that baggage into your next relationship and honestly probably cause them that same pain without even realizing it. So the next thing I want us to ask ourselves is, why do I want a relationship? Why? Why do I want a partner? Because recognize that a partner is a want and not a need. You know, I think the way and I will touch on this in a minute, I think the way a lot of people approach relationships now is from such a selfish place that it's leading them to failure before it even gets started. And I'm gonna dive deeper into that in a minute. But knowing why you're craving partnership is so telling of where you're at mentally and emotionally. I know for me, I am happy on my own. I'm fulfilled on my own. I have a great career. I have a great life. I have great friends. I provide for myself emotionally, financially. Like that, the only thing I could say is seemingly missing is someone to share that life with and continue to grow and build that life with. But that's not even missing. Having a relationship doesn't make you successful in life. That shouldn't be a defining trait of having a successful life. And when I approach dating from a place now of just wanting companionship, partnership, I love love. Hell, I have a sex drive. I'll openly say that, like all of these things, but I am such an emotional person. That is why I want a partner. And so this has taken me years to get to that point. I think part of it is the frontal lobe development, but knowing why you're wanting a relationship, and it's as long as it's not a place to fill some sort of void, I think that's a sign that you are ready to date. The next thing is, can you give your heart away without giving yourself away? And what I mean by that is, I have found myself in far too many relationships where I sacrificed myself, my self-worth, my values, everything just for the sake of making it work. And as women, we are kind of raised to be like that. We are raised to tone ourselves down for the sake of others. We're taught to be likable instead of being taught to be honest and being truthful with ourselves and knowing our worth. So can you actually give your heart to somebody without giving yourself away? Are you going to know when it's time to walk away from a relationship that is requiring you to sacrifice your values, your morals, any of your non-negotiables to make it work? And if the answer is no, then you're probably not ready for a relationship. And that begs the question is, do you know what your non-negotiables are for a relationship? Who is your ideal partner? And on that same vein of knowing your ideal partner, are you the kind of person that your ideal partner would even want to be in a relationship with? Are you going to match that energy? Are you going to be able to meet them where they're at and where you expect them to be? I think an easy example of this is, saying you want somebody who takes care of themselves, is super into fitness, has a 6-pack of abs, but then you haven't been to the gym in 2 years. I'm not saying that a guy like that wouldn't date somebody who's not into fitness, but what I am saying is you need to make sure that you're holding yourself to the same standards and values that you're expecting your partner to hold themselves to, and seeing where that aligns. And I may get some heat for making that example, but I think that's just like the easiest example that came to mind. And the last one, I kind of already said this, but are you able and willing to walk away from the relationship? You were fine before them. You have to know that you will be fine after them. And if you can know that, I think you are in a safe place emotionally to begin dating again. Because to me, love is not just a feeling, it's a choice. The reasons that we fall in love with somebody, they're not what's going to actually sustain the relationship in the long run. You have to practice intentionality. You have to practice choosing them. Even on the hardest days, you have to practice putting actions behind the feelings of the relationship. That is what builds a long-lasting relationship. And this is part of why I don't think I have found somebody, because I have not found someone who, one, I am willing to do that for, and who is willing to do that back for me. It has to be a mutual choice. Because while, yes, love does begin as a feeling, it deepens with understanding and it deepens with actions. And I think that's why a lot of relationships do fail, because the second the feeling changes, the actions fall apart. The loves that do endure are the ones that are more quiet. They are peaceful. They are calm. They understand that even though the feeling may not be as intense and passionate and loud and fireworks and, you're fucking like rabbits, the love is still there. It's just different, and it changes with time, and that's how it deepens. So it begs the question too, like, well, why do relationships fail? You can sit there and say it's money, it's trust and communication, but those are just such surface level reasons. And yes, those are big reasons for relationships failing. But I think they all go so much deeper than that. Because this is what I said earlier, is that most people have a selfish approach when it comes to relationships. Your partner should absolutely enhance your life and add value to your life, all of those things. But you have to be able to match that for your partner. A relationship should be about growth and service, not just pleasure and ease. And I've said this before, and I got a lot of heat for it, that the wrong relationship is going to bring out the worst in you. And I still believe that. But I think a lot of people kind of misunderstood what I was saying when I meant that, because the right relationship is going to trigger you as well. It's going to trigger your attachment issues. It's going to, force you to grow. It's going to make you a little bit uncomfortable because your partner should actually want you to be better. But what I meant when I said the wrong relationship will make you the worst version of yourself is it's going to make you the version of yourself that was unhealed once again. And the right relationship is about growing together and growing in service of each other. I've said this with friendships, that your good friends will tell you what you want to hear and your best friends will tell you what you need to hear. I think that is the same for a romantic relationship. Someone who truly sees you, who truly loves you, who truly wants the best for you, they're going to have those hard conversations with you. They're going to push you to grow. They're going to push you to break your bad habits. And I think it is, again, a fine line between controlling and concern. And that is where you have to discern, where it's coming from. Currently in America, the divorce rate is about 40 to 50%. 70% of those divorces are initiated by women. And, a lot of, especially the GOP, a lot of conservative people, they look at that statistic and they automatically blame women and they villainize them and they say, see, women are, they just want men's money, whatever the case is. And we've seen this in law by the GOP trying to overturn no-fault divorce, all of these things. But I want to look at it from a different angle. I want to look at this from what I said about relationships making us the best version of ourselves. Time and time again, you hear men say, oh, she was nagging, she was controlling, she was constantly bugging me about these things. In actuality, it's just women trying to push their partners to, one, not only be the partner that they deserve, but be the man that they know they can be. And that is the thing when you find a good woman is a man will find a good woman, see the man that he has to be in order to be worthy of her, and run the other way. And that is what I think happens a lot of times in relationships. And women will stay and self-sacrifice in those relationships because they're pushing a man to be the person that they know they can be because they fell for the man's potential, not who he was at that point in time. And I think men also get stuck in this provider mindset and they think, oh, I must provide. That means I must give money. I must give finances. And for some women, they want that. Cool, great. More power to you. But that's no longer the case. And it's not what women need anymore. To me, a man being a provider for me is providing a space that I can be emotionally safe, be emotionally vulnerable, not judged, not manipulated, not gaslit. And I think more men need to change their thought of what a provider mindset is. Because without that, without a man understanding he also has to provide emotional safety and emotional availability, I think it leads a lot of relationships to being transactional, which is one big factor in why relationships fail, because it's just tit for tat. I'm only going to do this for you if you do that for me. That's not what love is. That's not what love should be. To me, a true masculine man, a provider man, is a man who's in tune with his emotions and able to provide a woman with emotional safety and emotional availability. For all the marriages that failed and ended in divorce, I want to ask the question, is a marriage truly successful simply because they're staying married? Is it actually a successful marriage if you're just staying married in misery? To me, that doesn't scream successful marriage. Not settling for less than you deserve is not a failure. So why do the relationships fail? I've already said it leads like transactional relationships. I do this for me, you do that for you. That is a big reason that relationships fail because that leads into resentment and contempt. One person feels like they are doing the heavy lifting in the relationship and the other person is not meeting them where they're at. It's called the burnt out pursuer. Another reason why relationships fail is it's a mismatch of dreams and values. I think this is why it's so wonderful that we're seeing a shift in the age and people get married because people are first getting to know themselves and what they want out of life, and they are looking for someone who aligns with those dreams and values. No relationship should cost you your dreams, your values. It shouldn't require you to self-sacrifice in order to make it work. It requires compromise and sacrifice, yes, but it doesn't require your loss of self. I always say that one of the most important decisions I make in my life is going to be the person I choose to marry, because they're going to be the person that takes me through the death of my parents. I need somebody that I'm going to be able to suffer with, not just have good times with. They're going to be the person that is the father of my children. If I have them, do I want somebody who is just like my partner? Do I want someone raising my children to be just like they are? When it comes to living life with somebody else, you need to be living parallel lives. You can't be living perpendicular lives. I watched this in my own parents' marriage, as they've gotten older and talking about retirement, my dad does not want to be around people. He wants to be in the middle of the woods, and my mom loves people. And it just was inevitably, I could see the crumbling as early as like high school. And so I knew it wasn't a matter of if they got divorced, it was a matter of when. And when I told my mom that, she was so shocked. But I could see that from a young age. You have to be living a parallel life to your partner. You can't be living perpendicular lives, because you'll be going this way and they'll be going that way. And it's just going to take you further and further apart. Of course, and that's why I say parallel. I don't think you need to be on the exact same track as your partner, because you want to have an identity outside of the relationship. I think that is so important, but parallel, growing together, growing in tandem, and growing in a way that is taking you in the same direction. So live a parallel life with your partner, not a perpendicular life. This is also why it's so important that we know ourselves, so you can even actually reflect on what you want out of life and what a successful and meaningful life looks like to you. And I think one of the biggest reasons why relationships end is a lack of accountability. Your partner comes to you with a problem, you shut them down, you call them names, you say they're being dramatic. You're constantly invalidating their lived experiences. Even if you didn't mean to cause them pain, you're not willing to understand and self-reflect of why you actually did. Your partner's feelings should not be a burden to you. You can't set a relationship on autopilot. There's no such thing. Complacency is where relationships absolutely go to die. If you've become complacent in your relationship, it is the beginning of the end, and I need you to wake up. It's not about, if your partner is still coming to you trying to fix things, they want to, read self-help books or go to couples therapy or do something to fix their relationship, they still care. It's when they stop doing those things that you need to be worried, and the relationship has probably already ended. There's no coming back from that. To me, why relationships fail isn't always the actions in the relationship, it is the inactions. And those inactions tend to stem from the selfish ways in which people approach love. No one likes to be inconvenienced. Everyone wants a village without being a villager. It's the same thing in relationships. Everyone wants a partner who is going to show up for them and go out of their way for them and do these grand things for them without first doing the same for their partner. Just like I said, you can't build a relationship with someone who's not willing to prioritize it. You cannot build a life with someone whose only concern is what you can do for them and not what can we build together. That is how I think a relationship needs to be approached, is what can we build together? So I think that's why, one of my biggest complaints, and I say this to my therapist all the time, is like, I feel like I'm having a much harder time in dating now. I find dating boring. I, feel like I'm not meeting any of these guys, but it's because I have a lower tolerance and a lower threshold for the bullshit. I don't deal with the excuses. There's nobody busier than someone who's not interested in you. If a guy says he's just really fucking busy that week and really busy for the next couple weeks and makes no attempt to actually plan something, I'm out. Like, when you have a zero tolerance policy for bullshit from men, it is going to make dating harder, but it should be. It shouldn't be easy to find the one or the love of your life, whatever you want to call it. You only need one person. So choose them wisely. It's not it's like a tortoise and the hare thing. It's not necessarily about how fast you find that person. It's about finding a quality person. And something else too with dating is, and I see this a lot, I've felt like this, of where I feel like I keep attracting these emotionally unavailable guys. And that is true, but it's like a moth to the flame. If you are somebody who is kind, empathetic, vulnerable, you are an open book, you're emotionally intelligent, you are still going to attract people who are craving those things. So it's not about you're attracting the wrong people, it's that you're staying in the wrong thing for too long. Your problem is not your empathy, your problem is your lack of discernment and your lack of boundaries when it comes to dating. The whole podcast is like, I'm not going to dim my light, I'm not going to change who I am for the sake of others, and you shouldn't be doing that in dating, but you need to be able to discern when someone is not worthy of your light. just like I said, it's what can we build together? I can help them, I can fix them, I can heal them is a different language than we can grow together, we can change together, we can work on things together. It's not up to you to fix somebody's problems. It's not up to you to be their healer. You cannot be taking on their emotional burdens when they themselves can't even take them on. The way people show up in love, really 9 times out of 10 is not a reflection of anything about us. It's not a reflection of ourselves. And you have to get to the point in dating where you realize someone's ugliness, someone's mistreatment of me, the way that they have hurt me is not going to change how I continue to show up. It's not going to make me show up anything less than authentically myself with an open heart and an open mind. Like, that is how you have to approach to dating. And I will never regret the love that I gave to somebody. I will never regret showing them kindness. I will never regret being a shoulder to cry on, even if they hurt me, because in the end, they needed that love. Maybe, they were meant to teach me a lesson about maybe they were meant to teach me a lesson about what love is and what love isn't. And I was meant to show them what healthy love can feel like, what it should feel like, how a person should treat you. Every relationship that we have in our lives is either a blessing or a lesson. And I know some people constantly say, I'm so tired of having lessons in my life. Well, clearly you still have a lesson to learn. Clearly you keep doing something and showing up in a way that is causing you to repeat old habits and old patterns. Clearly there is something about you that is still unhealed and being triggered in your relationships. So if you're sitting there saying, I'm so tired of having lessons, how are you showing up in the relationship? What patterns, what traits, what habits are you repeating that you keep having the same person in a different font? Because that is what is going to happen so long as you stay unhealed in love. I know that I hit my breaking point in my last relationship. And that is exactly what I said is, why do I keep dating the same guy in a different font? Why do I keep dating these emotionally unavailable assholes? Why, literally, you guys saw in an episode earlier this year, in one of my first therapy sessions, actually, let me grab it. In one of my very first therapy sessions ever with my therapist, we went through and we broke down my parents' relationship and all of the major relationships I had in my life. And you heard me talk about 3 of these on last week's episode of the podcast. But again, it was always avoidant, anxious, avoidant, anxious, avoidant, like repeating the same guy in different fonts because I thought being in a relationship, being chosen meant I was good to go in life. It said I was worthy of something. And so doing this kind of work, asking yourself these kinds of questions, looking at your past relationships like this is going to make you more self-aware in dating. And it's going to show you whether or not you are ready for a relationship again. In an age of social media dating, in an age of dating apps, in an age of a lot of bad dating advice out there, I encourage you to take what you needed from this episode and leave what you don't. But modern dating is so different than dating in the past because we have more options than ever. But I think that overwhelming amount of options is leading people to have this, well, let me see what else is out there mindset. And what you shouldn't be doing that. If you have somebody who makes you feel safe, seen, and heard, they're on a parallel life path with you, and they feel like home, you're in a good relationship. I think a lot of times too, people become toxic and they talk themselves out of the relationship because they're like, oh, the feeling faded, whatever it is. Like, again, I'm no expert. I am just a girl who loves love and wants to see people happy in love. But I also want to see people living their authentic lives fully and wholly. And, I want to see people chasing their dreams and having a support system around them. I can't wait for the day that I get to fall in love again and experience all those firsts for the first time. But I also know it is going to come with a lot of triggers and a lot of anxiety. And I'm going to need somebody who is very patient with me as I work on being securely attached. I think I've definitely gotten a lot better, but I also don't think I'm quite there yet. But as somebody who loves love and is a hopeless romantic, I know that I am okay without it because I have love in so many other avenues of my life. And I think that is the best place to be approaching dating from, is not dating from a place of I am lacking, but approaching from a place of my life is already so full. I want now somebody to share that with. And yeah. So I don't know if I still go back and forth of whether or not I'm in a place to prioritize somebody in a relationship. And the thing is, I don't think I will know that until I meet somebody who makes me want to prioritize them. And I think probably part of the reason why I have not met somebody yet is because it's God's way of saying, like, it's not the time. But yeah, that is my thoughts on whether or not we are ready to date again. There is no shame in taking a break from dating. There is no shame in deleting the dating apps or being on the dating apps, so long as it's not affecting your self-worth and your confidence, ladies. I know I have been there where dating apps took such a toll on my self-esteem and self-worth. And I was literally just swiping because I just wanted the validation of seeing men match with me because they thought I was hot. Like it's a game and it's addictive. But yeah, pay attention to how dating makes you feel. Pay attention to the way that it triggers you. And I will see that. And that is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I thought cutting that, it is cuffing season. So it is so easy to just want to settle down and have somebody to cuddle with. I know I like cuddling, but we should not be getting into a relationship simply because we just want to be cuffed for all the holidays and we want some gifts. Like, that's not a reason to get into a relationship. But yeah, that is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. You can find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Just search Not the Girl Next Door podcast. It'll come up. Easiest way to do that is hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button. Also leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. And I will see you next week for another episode. Bye for now.